Joining us to go all out on this story is Basketball Analyst Juan Banal. Good morning, Juan. Thank you so much for joining us once again.
Good morning, Christine.
Okay, well, Juan, bago natin pag-usapan yung Commissioner's Cup, di ba? I'm sure napansin mo, sunod-sunod talaga yung mga trade na nagaganap. Yesterday, we saw Barangay Ginebra beefing up its lineup by acquiring Jamie Malonzo and Von Pesumal in a three-way trade with NorthPort and San Miguel. Now, okay, for you, Juan, in your opinion, what can Jamie and Von bring to an already loaded Ginebra team?
Well, that's, we'll start with Jamie. I think there's so much upside. We just saw him play for the Gilas team, and we saw him how he performs. We've seen him play with NorthPort also, together with Robert Bolick. That 1-2 punch, that backcourt was very explosive, very potent. They like running the floor, and so just imagine Ginebra being able to run with Stanley Pringle on one side and then Jamie Malonzo on the other, and then you have Scotty Thompson right in the middle. So that's going to be a scary backcourt. And I think the movements really shook up the entire league. But it's going to be an exciting, a fresher Ginebra, I would say. We even saw Coach Tim Cohn mentioning in one of the articles that he feels like he can build the team around Jamie Malonzo in the future. And so he's young, he's athletic, and maybe he's the next face of Ginebra. And then you have also Von Pesumal, who's been waiting to get that moment, right? He's always been behind the shadow of the likes of Marshall Lassiter. But this time around, at least, Ginebra kind of unloaded shooters. So they lost Jeff Chan, they lost also Arvin Tolentino. And so Von will be filling in those shoes, and he's going to be that legitimate shooter, designated shooter for Ginebra. And so and we know Von has a lot to offer. He was also part of the Gilas pool draft before, so we know what he's capable of doing. And so having him legitimately in Ginebra now with probably more playing time, there's just, again, so much upside for both players. It's a win-win.
Okay, well, I like that you mentioned, this could be a fresh team for Ginebra, but you also mentioned that Ginebra actually unloaded, players. You mentioned Jeff Chan, you mentioned Kent Salado, Arvin Tolentino, and Prince Caparal, along with the first round draft picks. So let's focus on these young gents and put the spotlight first on sina Kent, Arvin, and Prince. Arvin, Juan, has had his share of stellar performances dito sa Ginebra. Dito ba sa NorthPort, what do you think? Do you think he'll be able to showcase his full potential with them?
Well, Arvin's an offensively minded player, I would have to say. He would find his shots, he would pick his spots in the court. Even if the offense doesn't revolve around him, you know how potent he is offensively. Like, he can shoot from the outside. He's a tall forward. He can play in the post. And last conference in the Philippine Cup, he actually averaged 11.9 points and 35% from the three. So I think he's going to benefit a lot, I think, with the kind of offense that they have in NorthPort. You've got Robert Bolick now being able to find some shooters, and Arvin Tolentino just bringing in also his basketball IQ. So I think it's a good opportunity to really push more his potential and what he can offer to the Philippine basketball community.
How about naman yung mga veterano katulad ni Jeff Chan? I mean, we all know, we've seen it, and we all know what he can actually do on the floor. Now, aside from his veteran presence, what can he also bring to the Batang Pier?
Well, Jeff Chan, he averaged around 13 minutes in the last conference, around 4.9 points, shot 40% from the field, had at least 1 or 2 rebounds per game that he played. But it was good to see him in the last conference. We saw more playing time for Jeff Chan in the last conference, and now he's going to team up with another veteran in the likes of Arwin Santos. So again, it's a young team, and then mix it up with the experience of both Jeff Chan and Arwin Santos. I think the young guns will have a lot of growing up and learning from from these two veterans.
Okay, now we also mentioned one kanina, diba? A lot of trading happening. Now there's this trade Monday between the Blackwater, NLEX, and TNT. Kung saan nakita naman natin si Brandon Rosser joining NLEX. We have the Troy Rosario. And of course, your brother Gab to Blackwater. And then TNT acquiring naman si Calvin Oftana and Raul Soyud. Now, can Rosser give NLEX a competitive edge with this trade?
Well, there's so much upside again for this rookie because we barely saw him play in the last conference. He got injured. I think he only played around 8 games because of a hand injury. But we did see him play a lot during the PBA 3x3. So we have an idea of how he plays. From what I heard before flying into the Philippines, we had already a couple of scouting reports as to how he plays. He's a forward. He can actually put the ball on the floor. He has handles. But we barely saw that in 3x3. Now, when he started playing for Blackwater, because of the injuries, we barely saw him really play to his full potential. And again, the NLEX Road Warriors is, again, in that phase of finding their identity with the new head coach. I know the coach Adonis Tierra is their interim head coach, but I think it was already announced that it's going to be Frankie Lim who will be coaching the NLEX Road Warriors. So he's going to be bringing in also his style of coaching, his system. And so that it's really an open season for NLEX. We don't know what's going to come out, but it's a good opportunity for Brandon to kind of find his way and adjust better, because everyone's going to be adjusting. He's not entering into a system that's existing, but rather everyone will be adjusting to the new head coach. And I'm excited to see also the dynamics that he would be having with the likes of Kevin Alas.
I know there's a lot of movement actually happening, and it really comes down to finding that right fit. So that can easily make it such an exciting season for these players. Now, Calvin Oftana and Raul Soyud, what can TNT naman expect from their new acquisitions?
Well, for one, let's start with Raul Soyud. Raul Soyud, very smart, big guy. He's undersized for his position, but he could be a good reliever. He's been used to. I mean, he's one of the bigs that NLEX was depending on, or in the previous conferences, they would depend on him to defend imports, to defend the much taller guys like Junmar Fajardo, right? So he's used to playing as an undersized big, but he's very smart. He knows where to position himself to be effective as a role player. And so it's gonna benefit Poy Aram and Kelly Williams as a reliever, as somebody who can also help out in that paint. But again, I think the star of the conversation really is Calvin Oftana. We saw him play. He probably caught the eyes of Coach Shot Reyes beforehand, but he really got an opportunity to coach Calvin Oftana during the last window of Gilas. And just a revelation. We knew that NLEX wanted to build the team around Calvin Oftana, and he did prove himself. At one point, he scored so many 3-point shots. He's maturing so quick, and him moving to TNT, it's going to be tough, I would say, for Calvin, because you've got you've got ball dominant players in the likes of Jason Castro, Mikey Williams, and R.R. Pogoy, and where Calvin Oftana will fit in that mix, we have yet to see. So for sure, they're going to be depending on his ability to shoot from the outside. For sure, also they're going to be depending on his ability to guard guards, quicker players. And so he's going to be playing that position, sharing that position with Glenn Cobontin, who just recently injured his knee. So he's a good addition, definitely. But how he's going to mesh in the chemistry around the other players, that's yet to be determined. And I think everyone should keep their eye on this one.
Exactly. I mean, it would be exciting to find out how the coaches would actually play all of their new acquisitions. So Juan, please don't go away. I truly appreciate all the inputs you've been giving us, because the Commissioner's Cup is back after 2 years. So Juan and I will take a look at today's games. Basketball analyst Juan Banal is still with us for our preview of the PBA Commissioner's Cup. So Juan, the Commissioner's Cup, exciting, is finally back after 2 years. Your thoughts on the PBA returning to this 3-conference format?
Well, the design was really, each conference had its perks. You'd have really tall imports in one conference, wherein you see them heavily working on the paint. In other words, nga bubugan eh, di ba? Because you're dealing with huge guys, 7-footers, that are gracing our league, and that kind of equalizes the teams like Ginebra or San Miguel, who's got Junmar Fajardo. So you kind of want to see that happening also. So whatever leverage that San Miguel has, that kind of balances out with this kind of conference. And then you have another exciting one with the third conference, wherein you've got shorter imports but more explosive, more athletic, more agile, and so that also gives a different flavor. So it's exciting. Every conference is different, and I think that's how it was designed to be. It gives us different kinds of talents also in terms of import. So it also opens our, just excites the fans with the dynamics of having a variety of conferences every year.
I mean, definitely different flavors. It gives the players a chance to try to adjust and try to play, possibly different games. So let's focus on the first game of the Commissioner's Cup, which will see the Blackwater Bossing take on, the visiting team, Bay Area Dragons. The Dragons have been holding practices, di ba, dito sa Pilipinas. But what should the fans expect about the Bay Area Dragons? I heard that they're really going to be a very tough team to beat.
Well, nobody has beaten them in the practice games that they had. From what I understand, it's been an 8-0 record for them. But it's a mix of tune-up games with PBA teams and collegiate level teams. So, but the fact that they haven't been beaten, that's kind of sending a message that they are going to be competitive. Their players are composed of players from China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, even Macau. You usually see them. They're a mainstay in East Asia Super League. They're also going to feature a 7-footer, 7'5" to say the least, Liu Xuanxing, who played for the national team also of China. And then they have also, I think, imports like Miles Powell and Andrew Nicholson. So it's a strong lineup, and it's a good, addition to prepare our players, and it's just, again, different feel. You've got that accent team that can give you a different taste on how competitive other teams can get also. So it's exciting to see how they're gonna play. I think they played against Blackwater already in one of the tune-up games, and I think they won that.
Oh, well, you mentioned Blackwater. We know that they've had 2 new acquisitions, Troy Rosario and, of course, your brother Gab. We've seen Blackwater bounce back, di ba, noong Philippine Cup after a near winless run, noong Governor's Cup. They've been definitely the team. They've been with the team, these 2 new acquisitions, for a day or 2. Pero how do you think Troy and Gab will complement yung laro ng Blackwater?
Yeah, I was talking to my brother about the trade. Obviously, it was surprising to have that trade happen, but I guess one of the things I was telling him that you got Baser Amer, who went through a painful trade from Meralco to Blackwater, and then you also had someone like JV Castro. So sabi ko, it seems like Blackwater are picking players and having players that have something to prove, but it's really just it's part of the league. It's the life of a professional player, and what's interesting is how both Troy and Gab would be able to really, try out more things with Blackwater. Blackwater is that kind of team that is trying to carve its mark in the league, and I think having 2 very smart and experienced players in the lineup is definitely a great addition.
Okay, and then you also have the Phoenix Super LPG Fuel Masters and the NorthPort Batang Pier in the next game. Let's talk about the Phoenix. Siyempre naman, ngayon wala na si Matthew Wright sa team. Which player or players do you expect na mag-fulfill ng void na naiwan ni Matt?
Wow. That's a tough question.
Right?
Matthew Wright, big shoes,
that big, right?
size 20 siguro, yung shoes that need to be filled. But again, you still have Jason Perkins there. And from what I understand, he's averaging more points actually than Matthew Wright in the last conference. So it's kind of that there was a good transition already as to who becomes now more of the go-to guy, the main guy for Phoenix. But there were also some names that came up, right? Like Tyler Tio and Enchong Serrano also came up. But I think JB Mocon will see him more and what he can bring. It was one of those controversial trades and moves that happened or movements in terms of players when JV moved to Phoenix. And so I think he can bring more to the table. He's close to averaging double-double. But I think it's going to bring out more aspects of his game that he hasn't really shown anybody in this league now that Matthew Wright is not anymore with them.
Well, it could definitely also be a blessing in disguise and allowing all of these other players to step up and to shine even brighter. Well, our preview of the PBA Commissioner's Cup with basketball analyst Juan Banal continues after this quick breather. Our guest today, basketball analyst Juan Banal, joins us once again. Now, before we continue our discussion, let's find out first yung answer sa ating quiz question for the day. Before this year's Commissioner's Cup, the PBA last featured 2 foreign guest teams in the 2004 Fiesta Conference. Now, which teams were they? One. Would you know?
That's really hard. From what I remember, it was a Canadian and American team. I think, but I don't know what team it was. So, okay. Pass.
You got it right, though. I mean, the answers are the University of British Columbia Thunderbirds and the U.S. Pro-Am selection. Now, these teams, though, never won a single game during the quarterfinals in the 2004 Fiesta Conference. So, ang galing mo talaga, Juan. Eto na. I mean, if we think that today's matches are exciting, I mean, wait till you get to Friday. So, let's run through a couple of games sa opening week. Friday nga, di ba? This is exciting. Coach Yang and the Rain or Shine will face the NLEX Road Warriors for their opening game sa Commissioner's Cup. Okay, there's a lot of movement. As I said, Coach Yang facing his old team and, we're seeing reports. Now, you mentioned this earlier na yung San Beda coach na Frankie Lim will now be in charge of the Road Warriors. Okay, all eyes on these two teams on Friday. What can we expect?
Fresh kasi ito eh. The movement and then immediately fit the magaling. But it's going to be an interesting day. So I don't know. It's tough because NLEX is just going through a lot of adjustments. I know from what I heard, Coach Adonis said that he's going to continue and sustain the system of Coach Yang and not really make any huge changes. So we might see, but at the same time, you're not also so sure if Coach Yang had enough time to introduce his system back to Rain or Shine. I know that Coach Kaloy and their coaching staff, they were all mentored by Coach Yang, and so the system may not be so different. So there's a likely chance that we'll see similar, identical-looking teams playing against each other during this Friday. So there's just so much drama also and a lot of comments around it, but it's exciting, this is basketball in the Philippines.
There you go. I mean, a lot of these people have something to prove, di ba? And, as they go, there's a lot of learning that needs to be involved. On Friday as well, we have the Terra Firma Jeep taking on the Converge Fiber Xers. Ito na, yung PBA debut ni Coach Aldin Ayo after making a name for himself in college basketball scene, and he's also reuniting with players from his champion teams in the UAAP and NCAA with the likes of Jeron Teng, Aljun Melencio, and Kevin Racal. With Coach Aldin, will they have an easier time adjusting in the pros?
I would have to say it's never going to be easy. Any coach transitioning to the PBA, they all kind of aspire to be in this stage, and this is the pinnacle of basketball here in the Philippines right now. And so for any coach to make it to the PBA, that's a huge deal. And I think him proving himself in the collegiate level, being able to really take teams to the promised land like Letran and LaSalle. He obviously a lot of coaches you believe that he is ready, but this is still the PBA, and so he's gonna have to. It's inevitable that he'll have to adjust. But if he brings his style of play and just keeps his head down, I think there's just so much that he can offer. And I think making that transition was made easier by bringing in some of his boys that he previously coached. So those were really good moves for Coach Aldin Ayo. And again, also the Converge Fiber Xers are also trying to rebuild, right? They're rebuilding their brand, rebuilding their system, And so it's a good fresh start for them, and let's see what they have to offer.
And talking about Coach Alden Ayoy on Sunday, taking on the big guns, he will face Coach Tim Cone and the Barangay Ginebra team, which we've seen Coach Alden battle the likes of si Coach Tab Baldwin in the UAP. How about this showdown nila ni Coach Tim? How exciting can this be?
Well, you mentioned it already that Coach Tab he spoke highly of Coach Alden, and so that's a testament to how good he is of a coach. And so now he's going to be able to test his mettle against champion coaches like Coach Tim, and there are more. You're talking about legends here in the PBA, like Coach Norman Black, Coach Shot, Coach Yang, and these are really great coaches, and every coach would aspire to test their mettle and just be able to see how they can learn at the same time, also be able to test out what they can offer. And so I think it's all praises for Coach Alden Ayoy. Everyone's looking at him and what he can offer, and I think it's gonna be a win-win for him and both for Coach Tim, seeing it that there's a fresh new coach again. And we've seen coaches that really do well, like Coach Chito Victorero, came from the collegiate and then doing well once they get to the PBA. So again, so many exciting things happening in this conference, and people just should keep their eyes tuned in to the PBA.
Well, eyes will definitely be tuned in. We also have the Ginebra. I mean, you mentioned Tim Cone, Ginebra. Justin Brownlee is reinforcing the Gin Kings in the Commissioner's Cup. Brownlee has been Ginebra's resident import for how many years now? I mean, the longest time now. So
we lose count.
So Ginebra won the Commissioner's Cup title with Brownlee in 2018. Can Brownlee and his magic do wonders once again for the Gin Kings this time around?
That's the beauty of Justin Brownlee's magic. People had him doubting him already in the last time that he won. People were saying he's too old, he's probably too slow, and then here he comes, wins it for Ginebra, right? In the most Justin Brownlee fashion way. And so I think it would be very, very ill-advised to judge and generalize and quickly assume that Justin Brownlee will not be the same Justin Brownlee. And so I think he deserves the respect. Everyone's eyes will still be on him. He will be the benchmark for the imports this coming conference. And so I think everyone's preparing for him. I think he can get it done. The fact that we want to naturalize him says a lot about how good Justin Brownlee is and how familiar he is with how basketball is played in the Philippines. And so, he's just the Sean Chambers of this generation. And so everybody just loves Justin Brownlee. Even if you're not a Ginebra fan, you still love a person like Justin Brownlee.
Well, definitely an advantage for the Ginebra team. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, Juan. I always enjoy speaking with you. It seems like instead of a marathon with you, I feel like I went through a sprint. I mean, there's just so much information that keeps coming out, and I'm sure I'll talk to you again soon. We just spoke to basketball analyst Juan Banal.